Stand at the curb for 10 seconds and squint at your yard. If the planting looks like separate little purchases instead of one plan, the problem probably is not effort, it is structure. Most homeowners keep buying more flowers when the yard actually needs plants that do clear visual jobs. Something to light up shade, something to soften a hard edge, something tall enough to give the border a backbone, something that fills gaps so the mulch stops being the main thing you see. A yard that looks designed is usually not packed with rare plants. It often uses simple plants better. The same plant repeats. The foliage still looks good when the flowers are gone. The border has shape in July, not just color in May. In this video, I'll walk you through 9 perennials that help a normal yard look more intentional without turning gardening into a second job. Each one solves a specific visual problem, and each one comes with the caveat the plant tag may not mention: spread, pet toxicity, regional limits, heat tolerance, or where it simply does not belong. Before the plants, I want to name something useful, because it will change how you watch the rest of this. There is a difference between a yard that is full of plants and a yard that looks designed. Most homeowners reach for the first one. The second one is what they're actually after. A yard full of plants is a collection. Different heights, different colors, different bloom times, often bought in different years for different reasons. It can look great for a week in late May and then start unraveling the moment 1 or 2 of those plants finishes blooming or gets stressed by heat. A designed yard does 3 things differently. First, it has plants that look good when they're not in bloom. The foliage carries its weight. The shape of the plant has structure. You do not need flowers to make it worth looking at. Second, it has plants that fill the gaps between other plants. Bare soil between clumps is what makes a border feel half-finished. The fastest way to make a yard look intentional is to make the spaces between plants disappear. Third, it has plants that repeat. Designers do this on purpose. The same plant shows up in 2 or 3 spots, and the eye starts reading the planting as a composition instead of a list of random purchases. You do not need to think like a designer to copy this. You just need plants tough enough to thrive in more than one location. The 9 plants in this video each do one of those jobs, and they do it without asking you to baby them through every hot week. They will not replace skill. They will replace anxiety. That is the part most garden centers do not sell. Quick note on timing. In many zones 4 through 7 yards, late May is still a reasonable window for planting many of these, as long as you water carefully through establishment. In hotter southern zones, this is no longer a casual spring planting window. Plant early in the morning or evening, mulch lightly, and expect to water more often while the roots settle in. If your yard is already in steady summer heat, save the borderline plants for fall. Let's start with the spot that probably bothers you the most. Most yards have one corner where almost nothing works. Under a mature tree. At the base of a north-facing fence. Beside the garage where the shade falls early. You have probably tried something there. It either dwindled into a thin patch or quietly disappeared by July. The first plant on this list is built for exactly that spot. Pulmonaria Trevi Fountain, sometimes sold simply as lungwort, is one of the most underused shade perennials in the country. The leaves are long, narrow, and covered in irregular silver spots that catch what little light reaches that corner. In spring, the flowers open coral pink, shift to deep blue as they age, and end up sitting on the same plant in 2 different colors. That is one of those small details that makes a shaded bed look intentional instead of accidental. It is reliably hardy through most of the country, performs well roughly in zones 4 through 8, and prefers part to full shade with soil that stays evenly moist. The one condition it really does not like is hot afternoon sun on dry soil. Give it that and the leaves will scorch and look tired by midsummer. Keep it in real shade, give it a few inches of mulch, and it asks for almost nothing. It is not aggressive. It forms a slow clump that fills in over 2 or 3 seasons without crowding its neighbors. Deer tend to leave it alone, partly because of the bristly leaf texture, and once it has settled in, it handles inconsistent watering better than most shade plants of its size. Here is the practical detail most people miss. Pulmonaria pairs beautifully with hostas, but it covers a different visual job. Hostas give you mass. Lungwort gives you brightness. The silver-spotted foliage glows in dim corners the way variegated leaves do under nursery shade cloth. If you have ever wondered why a botanical garden's shade bed looks lit up and yours looks heavy, it is almost always the silver foliage doing that work. If your shaded corner has been a quiet source of guilt for a few seasons, this is the plant that ends the conversation. The mistake I see most often: people plant a single pulmonaria as a specimen. Plant 3 or 5 together, and the silver effect compounds into something that genuinely looks designed. Look at the edge of a garden bed in a yard you would call nice. Look at the line where the lawn meets the planting. In a generic American yard, that line is sharp. Mulch on one side, grass on the other, with maybe a single row of marigolds running like a fence. In a designed yard, that line is blurred. Something soft spills over it. That softness is doing more work than people realize. Lady's mantle is one of the easiest ways to copy that effect. The leaves are large, pleated, and slightly fuzzy. They catch water after rain and hold it in small silver beads across the surface. A quiet visual detail that explains the plant's name and makes the front of a border look more expensive than the budget would suggest. In late spring and early summer, it sends up clouds of tiny chartreuse flowers that float above the foliage and last for weeks. Chartreuse is one of those colors that ties almost every other color in a garden together. Blues read deeper. Pinks read warmer. Whites stop looking flat. Designers use it the way a chef uses lemon zest. Most homeowners never plant it because it does not look impressive in a nursery pot. Here is the regional caveat because it matters. Lady's mantle is hardy roughly through zones 3 to 7, and it thrives in cool summers. It resents heat and humidity. If you are gardening anywhere in the Deep South, the Gulf Coast, or the hot parts of the Mid-Atlantic and lower Midwest, this is a borderline plant. It can work in part shade with consistent moisture, but in places like Charlotte or Houston or Atlanta in late July, you may watch it sulk. North of roughly Zone 6, in the Northeast, the Upper Midwest, the Pacific Northwest, and the cooler parts of the Mountain West, it is one of the most reliable edge plants you can grow. Use it where you can see it: front of a border, the seam where a walkway meets a planting, the base of a mailbox, the edge of a raised bed. Plant it in groups of 3 or 5 rather than singly, because the softening effect compounds when the foliage forms a continuous wave. One honest mention: Lady's mantle self-seeds. Not aggressively, but enough that you will find small seedlings in surrounding mulch in year 2. If you do not want that, clip the spent flowers after they fade. If you do want it, and most people do, because the seedlings tend to fill spaces you didn't realize were empty, leave it alone. Most American yards have a problem you can spot from the curb without knowing what you're looking at. everything is roughly the same height. The shrubs are roughly round. The flowers are roughly round. The mulch is flat. The whole picture reads as a row of bumps instead of a composition. The plant that fixes this fastest is an ornamental grass, and the one I would send most people to first is Karl Foerster featherreed grass. This is not a flashy plant in May. That is part of why people skip it on the nursery bench. It looks like a tidy clump of green blades, maybe 2 feet tall, sitting in a small pot. It does not sell itself. By July, it is a different plant entirely. The stems shoot up to 4 or 5 feet and end in narrow, upright, feathery plumes that start a pinkish bronze and dry to a warm tan by late summer. That vertical line is what most yards are missing. It catches light. It moves in the wind. It gives the eye something to follow up instead of side to side. Karl Foerster is hardy roughly through zones 4 to 9, performs in full sun to light part shade, and tolerates a range of soils, including clay. It does not self-seed because it is a sterile hybrid, a real advantage if you are worried about ornamental grasses escaping into nearby natural areas. The clump stays put. It does not run by rhizome. It does not shed seedlings into the lawn. Maintenance is simple to the point of being almost insulting. Cut it down to about 4 inches in late winter or very early spring. That is the entire annual chore. Once you do that, it pushes new green growth, sends up plumes by midsummer, and stands tall, usually without staking, through fall, winter, and the first snow. Catching it in low-angle morning sun in October is one of the most photogenic moments you'll get in a low-effort garden. Here is where most people get this plant wrong. They plant one. A single feather reed grass standing alone in a border looks like a misplaced kitchen broom. Plant it in groups. 3 is a minimum. 5 looks better. 7 looks like you knew exactly what you were doing. Either run it as a repeated punctuation through a longer border, or mass it as a backdrop behind shorter perennials. If your yard has ever felt visually flat, this grass is the fastest way to give it a spine. Stop for a second on the math of this plant, because once you see it, the math is hard to argue with. Most perennials bloom for 2 to 4 weeks. Some, on a good year, push closer to 6. Hardy geranium Rozanne blooms from late spring through hard frost. In cooler climates, that is June through October. In warmer climates, the bloom slows briefly during peak heat and picks back up. It is not unusual to count 5 solid months of violet-blue flowers from one plant. This is not the geranium most Americans picture. The red flowers in porch pots all over the country are pelargoniums. Those are annuals that die every winter and have to be bought again every spring. Hardy geraniums are a completely different group of true perennial plants. Rozanne is the most famous of them, and it earned that status by being almost suspiciously easy. It is hardy roughly through zones 5 to 8, prefers full sun to part shade, and is not picky about soil as long as drainage is reasonable. The leaves form a low, spreading mound about 2 to 3 feet wide, and the plant weaves itself between its neighbors in the kindest way possible. It fills gaps. It covers bare soil. It tones down the awkward space between 2 larger perennials. Once it is filled in, weeds have a much harder time establishing because the canopy is dense enough to shade them out. 2 practical details that matter. First, Rozanne is a sterile cultivar, so it does not self-seed in any meaningful way. That makes it the rare, long-blooming weaver that will not show up in places you did not plant it. Set and forget in the best sense. Second, give it one haircut per season. Around midsummer, if the plant starts looking sprawled or tired, cut the whole thing back by roughly a third. Within 2 or 3 weeks, it pushes fresh growth and a fresh wave of blooms, and it will carry that wave straight into fall. This is one of the few perennial chores I would actually call worth your time, because the payoff is months of color. Quick question while we're here. Drop your USDA zone in the comments, plus one spot in your yard where you have been losing plants every summer. The plants in this video each solve a different problem, and I read the comments. The next plant on the list is one of the simplest ways I know to make a planting look like somebody designed it on purpose. Here is a small visual rule that most homeowners never learn. The fastest way to make a planting look intentional, the fastest way to get that designed feeling without paying a landscaper, is to add something with strong vertical lines and dark stems. Salvia Caradonna is one of the easiest ways to do that. The leaves form a tidy basal mound, but what you actually notice are the flower spikes. They rise about 2 feet, stand almost perfectly upright without staking, and end in dense clusters of deep violet-blue flowers. The stems themselves are a near black purple. That dark line is what gives the plant its architectural feeling. It looks like someone drew it on purpose. Most salvias have green stems, and the effect is softer. Caradonna has stems that read like graphic design. It is hardy in zones 4 to 8, takes full sun, and prefers well-drained soil. Drought tolerance is good once established, which is the standard caveat for almost any plant in this group. It blooms in late spring, and if you cut it back to the basal mound after the first flush fades, it usually returns with a second wave in late summer. Pollinators arrive immediately. Bumblebees work the spikes, native solitary bees show up. Butterflies pass through, though they are not the main visitor. If a hummingbird garden is somewhere on your wish list, Caradonna belongs in it. 2 practical notes. First, plant it in groups, not as singles. The architectural effect compounds. A row of 7 Caradonna along the front middle of a border reads completely differently than one plant set as a specimen. Designers know this. Most homeowners do not, because the nursery sells the plants one pot at a time and never shows you what 12 of them look like together. Second, this plant is the answer when somebody asks, "What should I do about deer?" and you do not want to lie. Deer tend to avoid aromatic salvia foliage. They are not impossible to deter, and a hungry deer in a hard winter will sample almost anything. But on a normal week, salvias come out of a deer browse better than most of their neighbors. A small caveat for households with dogs that chew anything green. Some salvias can cause mild stomach upset in pets if eaten in large amounts. The risk with Salvia nemorosa specifically is considered low. But if you have a determined chewer, plant Caradonna where the dog usually does not roam, and check with a vet if you ever see real chewing damage. Every American yard hits the same wall sometime in late July or August. The spring perennials are long done. The early summer color has faded. The annuals you put in for Memorial Day are looking exhausted. And the yard, which was the point of all that earlier work, suddenly looks tired. Russian sage exists specifically to carry a garden through that window. You may know it as Perovskia, which is what the nursery tag still says in most stores. Botanically, it was reclassified in 2017 and is now Salvia yangai. But the plant itself is unchanged. The new name has been slow to filter into the trade, and you will see both names for years to come. It is hardy at roughly zones 4 through 9, prefers full sun, and is one of the most reliably drought-tolerant perennials you can put in an American garden. The leaves are finely cut, silvery gray, and aromatic. The stems are pale and woody at the base. In mid to late summer, the whole plant sends up an airy cloud of small lavender blue flowers that holds well into fall. That airy cloud effect is the visual job this plant does that almost nothing else can replicate. It softens hard color. It blurs the line between one bed and the next. It catches afternoon light in a way that makes a tired August border look like it is still moving. 2 honest things to know before you plant it. First, Russian sage spreads slowly by underground runners. In a tight bed, give it about 3 feet of space and check the edges once a year. It is not considered invasive in most of the country, but it can wander into spots you would rather it stay out of. Second, treat the woody stems as a winter feature, not a mess to clean up in fall. Leave them standing through the cold months. In early spring, before new growth pushes from the base, cut the whole plant back to roughly 6 to 8 inches. That is your one chore. Pair Russian sage with the feather reed grass from earlier and the salvia spikes from the section before, and you are already building a low-maintenance composition that looks like it took years of planning. You did not need a designer. You just needed plants that knew how to do their own job. If I had to pick one plant on this list that almost nobody uses and almost everybody should, it would be this one. Amsonia hubrichtii is sold under a few common names: Arkansas blue star, threadleaf blue star, narrowleaf blue star. It was the perennial plant of the year in 2011, and in most American garden centers, it still gets passed over because it does not flower long enough or showy enough to grab someone shopping for color in May. That is exactly why it works as the anchor your border has been missing. Picture a soft, billowy mound of fine, needle-like green foliage, about 3 feet tall and 3 feet wide, holding its shape all summer without pruning, staking, or fuss. In late spring, it produces small clusters of pale blue, star-shaped flowers that float above the leaves for a couple of weeks. The flowers are nice. The foliage is the point. In fall, the entire plant turns a clear golden yellow. Not a tired yellow, a glowing late October yellow that lights up a border at the exact moment most perennials are giving up. 3 seasons of structure from one plant that asks for almost nothing. It is hardy zones 4 through 9. It performs best in full sun. It will tolerate part shade, but in too much shade it gets floppy and opens at the center, so give it real sun if you have it. Once established, it handles drought without drama. The clump expands slowly and does not need division for many years. Deer and rabbits leave it alone because the sap is unappetizing. 2 practical details. First, the milky sap can irritate skin. If you cut the plant back, and you only need to do that occasionally, wear gloves. It is not considered meaningfully toxic to people or pets, according to most extension and horticulture sources, but the sap is something to be aware of. Second, give it space. This plant grows fairly large, and unlike most perennials, it does not need annual division, so it will fill the space you give it. Set it about 3 feet from its neighbors and let it become the visual weight of that section of the border. If you have ever planted a row of small, fluffy flowers and wondered why the bed still looks weightless, this is the plant that fixes that problem. The next plant requires one piece of patience and rewards it with decades of return. It is also the plant on this list with the most important caveat, so I am going to walk through both. Baptisia, sometimes called false indigo or wild indigo, is a North American native perennial that produces blue-green compound foliage and tall spikes of pea-like flowers in late spring. Blue false indigo, Baptisia australis, is the species most people start with. The Decadence series gives you yellow, purple, white, and bicolor cultivars bred for the home garden, and they are widely available now. The plant grows 3 to 4 feet tall and equally wide, shaped almost like a small shrub. After the flowers fade, the seed pods turn black and rattle in the wind through fall, which is a quietly architectural detail that holds the border together when most perennials have collapsed. Here is the patience part. Baptisia does most of its growth below ground for the first 2 seasons. The deep taproot is part of why it lives for decades, tolerates drought, and shrugs off heat. But it also means the first season looks unimpressive. The plant looks fully like itself in year 3. If you can plant it and let it stay, it will outlast almost anything else in your border. It is hardy zones 3 through 9. Full sun gives the best bloom and the tightest habit. Average soil with reasonable drainage is enough. Deer avoid it because the alkaloids in the foliage taste bitter. Now the caveat that matters. Those same alkaloids make Baptisia mildly toxic to pets and livestock if eaten. North Carolina State Extension lists it as poisonous. With low toxicity, symptoms are typically nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea if ingested. It is not a plant most pets will choose to eat. But if you have a dog that chews on anything green, or if you garden near pasture animals, this is one to plan around or skip. If there is real chewing damage, call your vet. One last note that the plant tag will not warn you about. Once Baptisia is settled, do not try to transplant it. The taproot can reach several feet deep, and most attempts to move a mature Baptisia end with a damaged plant and a frustrated gardener. Pick the right spot the first time. Give it 3 to 4 feet of space. Let it stay there. It is the closest thing to a true plant it and forget about it investment on this list. I saved this one for last because it solves the rarest problem on the list, and it carries the most important set of warnings. Almost every long-blooming shade plant peaks in spring. By September, most shade gardens are either green or brown. Japanese anemone is the exception. The flowers, 2 to 3 inch saucer-shaped blooms in white, soft pink, or rose, open in late summer and continue through fall, sitting on tall, wiry stems above a clean mound of dark green foliage. In a part-shade corner that has looked the same since June, Japanese anemone delivers real color when almost nothing else will. It is hardy roughly zones 4 or 5 through 9, depending on the cultivar. It prefers part shade with consistent moisture, especially in hot climates. The famous white-flowered cultivar, Honorine Jobert, is the one most gardeners reach for, and it deserves the reputation. Now the warnings. Both matter. First, Japanese anemone spreads. It is slow to establish for the first 1 or 2 years, and then it forms colonies by underground rhizome. The UC Master Gardeners in Sonoma recommend thinning the clump every 1 to 2 years to keep it in bounds. In moist, fertile soil, that spread can be substantial. It is not on most state invasive lists, but it can become much larger than the nursery tag suggests, and it is hard to remove once it is settled in. Plant it where you want a colony, not where you want a single specimen. Second, and this one is non-negotiable, Japanese anemone is toxic to dogs and cats. The University of California, Davis lists anemone species among the plants most commonly responsible for pet poisoning calls. The sap can irritate skin, mucous membranes, and the digestive tract. If you have pets that roam the garden, this is a plant to skip, or to plant only in areas the dog or cat does not access. If you suspect ingestion, call your vet. If you do not have pets and you have a shaded corner that goes flat by August, this plant changes what that corner can be. Pair it with the lungwort from the start of this video, and you can build a part shade bed that holds visual interest from April through October with almost no daily attention. That is the point. Not 9 random plants. 9 plants that each do a different visual job and together start to feel like a designed yard instead of a collection of separate purchases. Here is what I want you to take from this. A yard does not look designed because someone worked harder. It looks designed because someone made better choices at the plant selection stage before any work happened. The plants in this video are not a shortcut to beauty. They are a different kind of plant. They were built to hold their job without daily attention. And that is the part most garden centers do not always make obvious because long-term performance is hard to judge from a pretty pot in May. If you pick one plant from this list, start with the spot in your yard that has been bothering you the longest, the shaded corner, the hard edge by the walkway, the flat middle of the border, the August gap. Match the plant to the problem. Buy 3, plant them as a group, then leave them alone and let them do what they were built to do. If practical, problem-specific gardening advice is what you wish someone had handed you the last time you walked into a garden center. Subscribe before you click away. Tell me in the comments which of the 9 plants matches the spot in your yard you have been ignoring. If you are already growing one of these, especially Baptisia, Amsonia, or Japanese anemone in your specific region, tell me how it has performed. Other people in the comments are reading, and that information is more useful than any plant tag. And whatever you do this weekend, before you put another $20 into a plant that looks great today and exhausted by July, pause for 10 seconds and ask the only question that matters. Is this plant built for the way I actually live? If the answer is no, walk past it. The next time you look at your yard, it should be doing some of the work for you.